Let's take a look at what else is happening here. And, of course, that is the war on terror. An article that's up on Infowars.com from The Sun, British special forces are now deploying to London streets permanently after these terrorist attacks. That's the SAS troops. Their elite forces are now going to be on the street. And as they point out in the subtitle on our story, the police state is expanding through problem, reaction, solution. See, they're not going to solve the problem. They created the problem so they could usher in their pre-planned solution. Here's an example of this. The Westminster killer that we just had, this last event, using a car, using a knife to kill people, and then shot by a gun. And, of course, that was reported by CNN. There was a firearm incident in London. No, there was a Muslim incident in London. Okay, this guy had been flagged by MI5 in 2010 as an extremist. Did they do anything about it? No. See, this is a metaphor for the entire situation. It's not just one individual that we know is an extremist. We know the Muslims that they're bringing in are extremists, but they're not going to do anything about that problem. Instead, what they'll do is turn us into an armed, militarized camp. Here's one from Germany. Police warned of the Berlin attacker as a terrorist threat 9 months before the assault. Terrorists sent messages that he was planning an attack. Did they do anything? No. They let him drive that truck through the Christmas market, killing over 100 people, I believe, if I remember the number correct. There's been so many of these terrorist attacks, I can't remember the death tolls from the individual ones. Meanwhile, what we have in Germany still going on, we got Syrian refugees in the German streets chanting Allahu Akbar. Well, what else? Why else wouldn't they be doing that? They don't appreciate the fact that they're here. And that's why I said the people who are going to be the most dangerous ones are going to be the second generation, even more dangerous than the 1/10 of 1% that they come in of the 1 million people. You want to bring in 10,000 terrorists or whatever, you can't screen these people 100%. If we're going to be going to war with these countries and then bringing them in without any vetting, we don't want to have extreme vetting with people who are coming in from the wars zones that we're going to war with. There's something wrong with that, isn't there? I mean, can't you see, regardless of which side of the issue you come down on this, either you say there's nothing wrong with these people, we ought to let them all come in, and then you ought to be arguing to stop the wars that Obama created. He stepped that up. He was at war, first president to be at war the entire 8 years that he was president. He stepped up the number of countries that we were at war with to 7. Why wasn't the left talking about that? If they want to bring these people in with open arms, don't kill them in their own country. Then you won't have to bring them in. But they wouldn't talk about that. And instead, they'll let the slaughter in these countries continue, and then they will say, but we don't want to have any control over the people that come in. Just bring everybody in. No problem. Bring everybody in. And you realize that if you have 1/10 of 1% of these people, you bring in 1 million of them, you're talking like, what is that, 10,000 or something? Anyway, let's look at what Al Gore says the real problem is. See, the problem is not creating a problem and then doing a solution to this. No. That's not the problem. The problem is, as Al Gore says with everything, the problem is climate change. See, if the only tool you got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and everything looks like climate change to Al Gore. This is from James Dullingpole, and this is, of course, the sequel that Al Gore is now pushing. An inconvenient sequel, Truth to Power. Well, it really is a convenient sequel for him, and it's lies about power. It's lies about power, both political and electrical. These are the lies that he's telling us. And he says it all began in Syria. And he's got, as Dullingpole points out, a lavishly complex climate conspiracy theory. And what he says is the gates of hell opened in Syria with a drought. It had nothing to do with our government saying that we're going to have regime change, that we're going to set countries on fire. Had nothing to do with Libya. It had nothing to do with Afghanistan or Iraq. It had nothing to do with any of that stuff. It had nothing to do with us deciding that we're going to do regime change come hell or high water. See? And if you want to believe that, then explain why Madeleine Albright, when questioned about whether or not sanctions in Iraq were worth the death of 500,000 children, she said, yeah, sure. Yeah, sorry about that, but no, our political goals are worth the death of 500,000 Muslim children. And that's what they did at that time. And that was even before they started a war. So you think, though, that he's trying to tell us that it was not the sanctions, it wasn't regime change, it wasn't setting these countries on fire, it wasn't using al-Qaeda and ISIS as our surrogates for regime change. No, it was climate change. It was an extreme drought. And that drought caused so many people to have so many problems that we now have to bring them into our country. And so that's not a problem. We just need to turn over control of our economy to Al Gore, and then that'll stop the root cause of everything, according to Al Gore, which is climate change. He says that's the root cause of everything. I want to talk about what happened and where this is all going. You know, we've talked about the Civil War that is developing, not only politically, but in other ways. We talked about the mass exodus out of the cities because people are realizing how dangerous these things could be, but they don't want you to get out of the city. One of the ways that they're keeping people in the cities, that they plan on keeping people in the cities, is to make sure that you don't own a car. That if you do own a car, that you're going to be gradually pushed out of that car into a self-driving car. So when we look at this accident this last weekend, and they were quick to point out that it was failure to yield right away for the Uber car. The human car was the one that created this problem. And as I said yesterday, Wired Magazine instantly jumps in on this. And you can see this repeating pattern. Remember, it was Wired Magazine in their Danger blog 5 years ago that pointed out that Petraeus said the Internet of Things is going to be used to have your appliances spy on you. When Kellyanne Conway talked about that, Wired Magazine said, no, Kellyanne, your appliances aren't spying on you. That's the way they have changed. And they're doing the same thing with self-driving cars. I'll tell you about that when we return. Stay with us.
Talk show host is Alex Jones. He's a conspiracy theorist.
Radio talk show host Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Jones is the wildly popular conspiracy theorist.
Radio talk show host and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones.
Deeply, I think, racist.
I just got called racist by MSNBC.
I don't want that man to have a gun.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
The Alex Jones Show. Watch the free stream live at Infowars.com/show.